Welcome to All the Way Alive. This is a space for the real, the raw, the unfiltered experience of being human. I'm Carolyn, and I'm most definitely not here as a teacher or an expert. I am a fellow traveler fumbling my way through the mess and the magic of life with you. This isn't the bullshit of self-help. It's not about becoming better or fixing anything. This is about truth. It's about risk. It's about letting yourself be seen all the way through. It's about the initiations we go through in love, the ache of purpose, the wild vision, the grief, the ecstasy, the fear, all of it. Here we explore what it means to be all the way alive, to feel, to fall, to fuck it up, to try again, to listen to your body, to mine your own wisdom. There's no finish line, just this moment, just this breath, just this one wild, precious life. Let's go there. Well, it's been a while. It's been a while since I recorded an episode, since I actually have done any creating whatsoever. And there's good reason for it. And there's also interesting possibilities that are arriving because of the space that I was in and kind of am continuing to be in. So this episode, or I don't even know if I want to call it that, but this space where I'm sharing is from a place of curiosity and experience and willingness to tend to these spaces of grief. And how when we shift our relationship to grief and welcome grief as a companion, as part of our daily life, and sometimes as a really welcome guest that stays for a bit longer than maybe we anticipated. It offers a really important and essential aspect of living, of what it means to be all the way alive. So in that space. And where to begin? There's a lot to even consider when we're looking at grief, because it's not just a state. It can also be something that we tend to. The door is just naturally closing on its own here. And it's not a problem to solve. That's for sure. I'd say that is the most important piece that I want to touch on. Because sometimes when grief shows up, we see it as a problem. We avoid at all costs. We turn away from. And really, it's this beautiful invitation, to go inward and to go downward, to look again, to be with, to reconsider, to tend to. And so it offers this invitation to bring grief in as a companion. And we'll dig more into that, that's for sure. But this piece of shifting from a problem to solve is counter to a lot of the ways that we're taught, in primarily Western culture and more of the modern day approach to things. Whoop, my kitty's here joining me. And because we've really come to pathologize grief, it has become something that we need to fix, right? Or medicalize, essentially, to the point where we use medications in order to navigate or manage grief. That could open up a whole other portal of inquiry and questioning into the use of a lot of other medications as well. One of the things that I heard Francis Weller speak to is as even depression as being, just a misunderstanding of grief. So it's another experience or expression of grief. And so if we can tend to it as such, it offers a different way in, a different possibility. And so grief is a wise teacher. It's a loving companion. And it really arrives in and with the spaces that have known love, right? Or that hold the promise of or the energy of love. And that's really, really important because grief is not present where love is lacking. And that doesn't mean that there can't be a longing for it, but it holds that. It still holds the essence of it. And there's this quote from Francis Weller. I wrote it down here somewhere. So the work of the mature human is to carry grief in one hand and gratitude in the other. And so they're not actually separate. The gratitude is an expression of the recognition of love. Grief is the recognition of something that is sweet and holds the promise of it. And perhaps I'll talk about the gates of grief absolutely in a moment here, but perhaps it's pointing to the same thing. And it offers us many possibilities or opportunities to get curious about the spaces where grief shows up and what that means. Yeah. I'm doing a lot of work in somatics right now. So both somatic body work and also somatic counseling. And so I'm really curious also about how those two things show up in the body and if they move and are processed differently. It's specific to my own body. It just kind of came in as a possibility or as a curiosity. So the 5 gates of grief that Francis Weller has shared about in his book, The Wild Edge of Sorrow, and his other works. There are a couple of other gates that are proposed, but I'll just share the 5 that he speaks to. So the first one is everything we love, we will lose. That relates very much to the death of a loved one or the loss of a job or, a major shift in your life. The second gate are the places within us that have not known love. So again, doesn't mean love is absent, but there's a longing for it. Third gate is the sorrows of the world. So when we understand and know ourselves as not separate and really as our essence of love as one and of essentially light in our nature, the sorrows of the world, meet us. And so grief can exist there. Another gate is what we expected and did not receive. So the places that we hoped and longed for and weren't met with, again, it still holds that longing of love and of possibility and of desire. And then the 5th great gate that Francis Weller speaks to is ancestral grief. And this one's really unique and interesting because, sometimes our grief seems to not make any sense. Like it shows up and we're like, why? Like, why is this here? And maybe we slip into the experience of meaning making and we can't find that. We can't find the meaning of it. And so sometimes it's ancestral. Sometimes it's not ours as a personal expression or experience. And I found this a really unique experience when I was doing a training with Thomas Hubel, who really goes into ancestral healing work. And he speaks to how we are a living embodiment of our ancestors. So I'm just holding that for a moment. So we are a living embodiment in this present moment of our ancestors. And he doesn't mean that just like theoretically, he means that. So whether that is, you can look at it through genetics if you want to take a really scientific and Western approach to it, which is totally cool. And then there's these other aspects of it, of like what's handed down in terms of thought and pattern and experience from generation to generation. And then there's this other kind of curious and magical aspect of soul, and these ripples that happen that like are encoded in our the essence of who we are in every cell, the light pattern within every cell, within every aspect of who we are, and how that translates. And I love his work because Thomas Hubel, he really speaks to how when we do the work ourselves to tend to these spaces, it does ripple backwards into the past, helping to heal our lineage. And then obviously affects the future ones also, and what's possible there. And so to do this work isn't personal or just personal, it's transpersonal, and it can be multidimensional as well. And those are the places where I get really curious and excited and interested, and yeah. And one of the pieces that I want to speak to is how grief it more mirrors like the feminine descent into the womb space of potentiality, of possibility, of alchemy, as contrasted maybe with the masculine journey, like the hero's journey, which is like searching, going for a goal, needing to achieve something in that way. That's the hero's journey, is overcoming. Whereas looking through the lens of more of the feminine descent, or the heroine's journey, it's been referred to. There's lots of different ways to describe it. You can talk about it as the dark night of the soul. It's not specific to women or to females. It's just that when we look at it through that lens, it is more of a feminine aspect of who we are. And obviously we contain both aspects. Yes, it's downward, it's inward, it's dark, it's damp. It can feel lonely, similar to a hero's journey. And there's still tests, there's still feelings and sensations of uncertainty and of being in a place of the unknown, having to let go of the familiar. Even on the hero's journey, they mirror each other. They're just, one is a bit more outward and upward, and the other one is more downward and inward. And I find it really fascinating. Like, I'm so fascinated by this. This descent is essentially going into the womb space of the collective soul, of all potentiality. And we can look at it, if we're looking at it as more of an earth-based sort of thing, it's going into the womb of this earth. And in order to be reborn, essentially. But it's not with the intent of being reborn, it's with the intent of going into the womb. There's a pattern, there's a knowing that will happen, but we can't really go into it with that as a goal. It has to be more of a trust. And so it has these like different qualities of experience and of feeling. It's like it's a feeling tone sort of thing. And what I can share is my experience of those spaces. I'm learning to trust them. I crave them, I crave that depth, that that space of quiet and of trust and possibility, and like where the voices are so clear, where love like exists in essence. And based on past experience and some of the patterns that I've inherited and that I've created in my life, and through my own choices, there's pieces of fear, and it's taken time and leaps of faith. Oh, that touches me like deeply. I had this experience, and I know I shared this on a previous episode, but I had this experience with my daughter, Avery, who's like, I don't know how to describe her, because I wouldn't describe her as a typical teenager. There's some things she has like no deep understanding of that most people do, and then other things she's just just understands. It's inherent in who she is. And I was like, I just don't know about this next step in my life and whatnot. And I was talking about this feminine descent, and she's like, well, like, are you willing to take a leap of faith? And I'm like, what did you say? She's like, well, like, that's what you need to take a leap of faith. And so I've held that, and I looked at her, and I was just like, oh my goodness, thank you. And where did that come from? And I always love that. I always love that. Like when spirit or knowing or gnosis speaks, and we can offer that. And that's really how it shows up for me too, is in response. So going into those dark spaces, I kind of have to enter with trust, because I won't know until I'm there how I'll respond. And so it takes a leap of faith, of letting go, of stepping out onto the proverbial invisible bridge, right? It's like we have to place trust ahead of experience. And man, that's fucking hard for me. So the fear that shows up for me most strongly is the fear that there will be no bottom. That there will be no bottom to the grief that I will experience, that the womb isn't a womb, but a black hole. And it's interesting because I was listening to Womb Awakening. I'm into like quite a few different audiobooks and like paperback books also right now, and they all have to do with Mary Magdalene and Womb Awakening and grief. And so like these downward and inward spaces are just really present for me. Oh, what was I saying? Oh, right. So in this book, Womb Awakening, there was, I think her name is Seren Bertrand, something like that. Maybe I'll link it in the show notes there. She talks about the primordial womb as the black hole, right? Like that space of the black hole, but it's not bottomless. It basically spits you back out, right? Maybe it's not the same as like an earthly hole where we dig and we allow there to be a bottom, and we can rest in there, or in like the feminine womb of there being containment within the body. But there is a level of containment. It's just different. Like it plays by different rules. So, as is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm, and they're reflected in that way. And so, interesting. Now I'm taking myself into this new space of curiosity about, well, does it matter if there's a bottom? Like, have I simply not reached the level of trust that's required? And that's an obvious answer of yes. But it takes me into these spaces. And the last one that I am kind of coming out of, but like more just tending to in a unique way now. That was the question that I landed on, is like, okay, so if there's no bottom, then is there no God? And I was really in that space, and it almost felt desperate. But then there was this invitation within that to surrender. There is this invitation to trust. And in the trust is that, like, you know, that peace that passeth all understanding. It's like that they're not separate. They're not, it's not empty. The space isn't empty. There is all possibility, all potentiality exists in that space, but we must first completely let go. And this reminds me of the vision aspect of things, and like what it takes in order to fully embrace what I have come to understand as vision, which is something that is beyond the physical, beyond the known, and exists in the imaginal realm of things, in the design or the blueprint that exists beneath that. And so the letting go is really just of all of the things that we know, like that we have held on to or are using to kind of prop up our ego in some way. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm in there. I'm not a saint in that way. I'm learning, and I'm acutely aware of when my ego wants to come on board and like steer the ship. And I have great compassion for myself in that way. And so I guess this brings us to the next piece that I really wanted to talk about, because it feels powerful. And that's that grief and joy aren't separate. So I'm part of this book study actually for The Wild Edge of Sorrow by Francis Weller. And at our last call, this last Sunday, you know, it showed up. Somebody was speaking about joy, and I shared like what I had come to know. And I don't think I actually read this somewhere. I think that it just became really familiar for me, is that joy is an emergent property of grief. Oh, right. So on the call, somebody was talking about like, can I hold both at the same time? Can I hold joy and grief? And and I almost, like, I went back into the memory of that, and it's not only can you, it's like it's a requirement. it's that joy emerges from grief. And not that it has to be like this destabilizing, flooding experience of grief where you're so taken out, which obviously happens. But it's in the tender awareness of the limited, or the preciousness of something. And I would actually remove the word limited. So the preciousness of it, because really in the essence of it is like eternality or eternity. Eternality isn't a word. I don't know where that one came from. Yeah. So because grief holds the preciousness of all things, and the essential design, the imaginal design of love and of purpose, of the vision that we arrived here with, the bundle of gifts that we've come here to give and to bring and to be in service to. Like, joy necessarily comes out of that space of preciousness, which I would call grief, the recognition of how precious things are. And that's very powerful, because, you know, if we're searching for joy, if we're searching for, and we're mistaking excitement for joy, or, you know, these peak states for really the abiding joy that is possible when we tend to our grief in a regular and concerted way, like, we're missing it. And I know for myself, man, like, I've bulldozed right over that. And it shows up for me when I'm in a state or an experience of scarcity, where I'm afraid that I'll miss out on something, or I will, like, or I'm in lack experience when it comes to finances, or like whatever it is, or health. It could be anything. And I'm trying to remember who this author was, but it just reminds me of there's an article written, man, wish I had somebody to just like look things up as I'm talking. But essentially what it was called is like, times are urgent, we must slow down. And yeah, I'll see if I can find that and link that as well. So times are urgent, we must slow down. And so rather than it being an experience of scarcity, there's just a knowing of the preciousness of it, because that's what urgency is. Urgency is, hey, like we must pay attention to this because it's important. And that doesn't mean go faster or bulldoze through or like, yeah, or distract from. You know, one of the things that shows up for me is I kind of move into this state of like hyper, like overdoing. And I like there's such beauty in that at times, because I get a lot done, but it's a coping mechanism. And it is not a reflection of joy. I would say it could be mistaken for excitement, but it's not abiding. It doesn't stay with, and it's limited, it's finite, and it's depleting. And the qualities of joy are so different than that. You know, it's deep, it's sustaining, it's abiding, it's life-giving. It feeds the soul. It feeds the people around. And so like that is an aspect of service that is so important. And so I would say that like at the bottom is not nothing. At the bottom is this black hole that spits us out into joy and a reminder of the preciousness of all things. And grief says, you know, you loved, you belonged, you opened, you matter. And in that is the blueprint of joy, is the blueprint of your soul, of the light encoding that you came here with. Yeah. I'm wondering how to close this. I feel really tender these days, and open, and also discerning and slow and mindful, and also like acutely aware of things and people and situations and circumstances that no longer fit, especially as it relates to the feminine mysteries. Like that feels like the path for me in particular. And yeah, I'm the pieces that I'm acutely aware of, and I'm just being mindful of my language because I haven't really learned how to speak about this yet, is like there's this different approach. There's like a more patriarchal lens or approach to spirituality that is more about abstinence and purity and like all of these different things that relate more to the hero's journey, right? Is like overcoming or achieving. And then there's this like left-handed path that is much more in alignment with who I am in essence, what my design is. And that takes me into these spaces of grief and welcomes me there and calls me forward into deeper understanding of womb medicine and sacred sexuality and, you know, what it means to be in that space of reflecting somebody's soul, and whether it's a person or a thing or an experience, and like the somatics of it, like processing through the body. and I'm diving deep into that. So like both with personal exploration and then learning about somatic experiencing, and then also somatic body work, which just fascinates me. Like the body is like so beautiful to me. And going into it through this more feminine experience rather than it being intellectual and structured and canonical, like especially when we're looking at religion. So it's more of a like a Gnostic approach to it, I suppose, and a space of curiosity. So yeah, I guess I don't have the language because it's still unfamiliar. Like it's familiar, I know it, but it's something that I'm exploring. And grief is such an important piece of this. And so that's really what's leading me deeper into this work. And I've been walking this path, you know, as a this apprenticeship with sorrow, as Francis Weller puts it, for many years now. And I've taken multiple classes with him, and then a grief ritualist facilitator, or grief facilitator training, however he puts it now. I think it's shifted, with Francis Weller and his team. And it was so beautiful. But really, like textbook learning, like that's not what that was. But anything like that just holds no appeal for me, because I'm much more in that space of curiosity around how it moves through my body, and it, as a lived experience, as a gnosis, rather than an intellectual pursuit or passing down in that way. So, okay, I guess I just opened a whole new topic. Oh my goodness, I thought I was closing this, but that's okay. Thank you for being here. I don't know how this will be received. I wasn't sure if I would share it this way, but I love this. I love sharing in this way. And even if nobody sees it, even if nobody listens or reflects back, like that's okay, because I'm living my design. And that's what I'm coming to recognize more and more. May you remember yourself as love. Yeah. May you remember yourself as love.